of lung cancer each year, and Nevadans are at a higher risk. If an elevated level of radon is found, there are ways to reduce it and lower the risk of getting lung cancer.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
Well, here we go. Welcome, everyone. Bienvenido. It's your host, Leonard Cornelli, sitting in for Brian Shapiro, who's out going to the UNF America tour and he's debating, and he was down in Arizona State, and there were some issues there. And you get me today, and hopefully, everyone will be kind. I'll do my best. Later on, at the bottom of the hour, we have Ryan Shead. If you remember, Ryan Shead has been hosting all week, and he'll be back on Friday. But he started to talk about mental illness yesterday and police response to mentally ill patients. And I thought, and I came on the show live, and I said, hey, let's have that talk sometime. Maybe I can give you my perspective. I'm a 25-year retired police lieutenant, and we had extensive training on mental illness and how to respond to those types of calls. And being there for 25 years as a police officer, I went on numerous, if not 1,000 or a couple of thousand of those calls. We got those types of calls almost every night and throughout my career. And I responded to every kind of call from simple and everything's okay to violence and everything in between. So I thought it would be interesting to have Ryan Shead on to have that conversation and kind of, have some dialogue back and forth so that maybe the listeners could understand a little better. And I was a training officer, so I did teach classes at the academy and in the training division, and some of them did include how to deal with mentally ill subjects. But first, to give you an idea of how the show's going to go, we're going to start out with some news and some clips. There's a lot going on out there, a lot of okay, good stuff and some bad stuff, and we're going to try to get it all in. Later on, we'll be taking your calls. We'll try to stay on topic as much as possible, but we can obviously talk about anything, and we do invite pro Brian Shapiro, anti Leonard Cornelli, MAGAs, conservative Republicans, Democrats, socialists, and whoever wants to call in and discuss what's on their mind. And what we're looking for is kind of maybe different viewpoints on the same subject. For example, the Iranian war, maybe get a couple of different takes, and maybe some people could say, I think it was a terrible idea. It was ill-advised. It's costing us money. It's not about America first. It's not helping Americans at all. So maybe someone can call in and tell me how they think it's helping everyday Americans who are paying for gas and groceries and using their credit cards and trying not to use their savings and trying to, basically keep the wheels on when the car is out of control, so to speak. And then later on, we'll finish up, and I will be here tomorrow. I'm filling in for Brian again tomorrow, so you get me. I know some of you are disappointed about that because, obviously Brian Shapiro is the host. He's the guy everybody comes here for. And then on Friday, you get Ryan Shead again. So let's start with some clips. And the first one is it was breaking news as of a day or two ago. President Trump saying that the war in Iran has been won. Let's listen to what he has to say.
We've won this. This war has been won. The only one that likes to keep it going is the fake news. I mean, the New York Times, you read the New York Times, it's like we're not winning a war where they have no Navy and they have no Air Force and they have no nothing. And we literally have planes flying over Tehran and other parts of their country. They can't do a thing about it. For instance, if I want to take down that power plant, that very big, powerful power plant, they can't do a thing about it. It's like, take me. That's all they can do. And yet, if you read the New York Times or if you watch ABC fake news or NBC fake news, you'd say it's a close battle. It's not a close battle.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. he's calling it fake news. And at the same time, while he's saying that the war is over, he's also saying, we may need to stay there for a little bit. So yesterday, Tuesday, Iran fired 13 salvos throughout the day into Israel. They struck a main explosive facility near Isfahan, and the Israel and U.S. accused by Iran of bombing a nuclear site yesterday. So does that sound like a war that's won? Does that sound like a war that's over or going to be over? What Trump is doing is he's manipulating the stock market by putting out positive information. And then there's accusations that some countries who will take a bet on anything. People were betting on whether or not Iran would bomb Israel again and winning hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I don't know if there's any proof of that, but there have been stories about that. And then Trump says that he's getting ready to strike a power plant, and it's a $10 billion plant. And as you probably already know, under certain circumstances, striking an energy facility or a power plant can be considered a war crime under certain circumstances. So we're getting both. We're getting, it's over, but it's not looking good. And then he's saying that, then Trump is saying that Iran is like wants to negotiate. They're ringing the phone off the hook. Then they talk to Iran, and Iran says, I don't know what he's talking about. We didn't reach out to him. We don't want to negotiate. It wasn't us. And so now there's a credibility issue. So in the second clip, Trump's delusions of jointly controlling the Strait of Hormuz with Iran are straight out of the rom-com, Me and the Ayatollah. That's a joke. But I want you to watch this clip, and we'll talk about it on the other side. So there you go. That's Jon Stewart, by the way. I think it was on Monday, doing a satire on the war and Trump's flip-flopping, and I don't even know what you would call it, trying to play both sides, trying to be clever. But if they were obliterated, then why do we have to go and get them? And they spoke to some of the unidentified spokesmen from Iran said that the enriched uranium is still there. It is buried under some rubble, and that's what Trump was talking about. But basically, it's still there. And if they negotiate a treaty, or if they negotiate some kind of agreement, then we could possibly ask Iran to give up the enriched uranium. As it stands right now, Trump sent a 15-point plan to Iran, which Iran has reportedly turned down. They're not interested. It was more of a list of demands. And then I guess there will be a counter proposal. Iran said they do not want to negotiate with Trump because of the last two experiences. And the last experience when the negotiations team, 48 of the members and the Ayatollah were together for negotiations so they could figure out what to offer. They were all killed. So they want to negotiate now with J.D. Vance. That's what the news is saying Iran wants to do next. On the next clip, this is Macho Man Pete Hegseth, and the clip says he sounds like someone indoctrinated into a cult. But the question is, why is he's so angry about the questions? It's because he's maybe hiding something. Let's listen.
The American people also want to know what they're sending their men and women to war for. Is there a concern of this spiraling into a longer war? And then one for the chairman when you're done.
Did you not hear my remarks? I mean, we're ensuring the mission gets accomplished, but we're very clear-eyed, as the president has been, unlike other presidents, about the foolish policies of the past that recklessly pulled us in to things that were not tethered to actual clear objectives. So we know. We have plans, we have generals, we have chairmen, we have commanders, CENTCOM commanders, Admiral Cooper.
So what is Pete Hegseth so angry about? He's the Secretary of Defense of the United States of America. We are at war, okay? We're at war right now. And so the news is supposed to be there. They're supposed to be covering it. This is a democracy. This is where you pay your taxes, and that tax money goes to people who represent you, and the people that represent you put people like Pete Hegseth into office so they can answer questions and be accountable for how they're spending your money and how the direction of America is going. And you know, I think Pete Hegseth was the wrong choice. He was a Fox News host. He was only there on the weekends, and he's just he seems to be excited by war and doesn't really calculate how serious it is that he's sending men and women into battle and they're actually dying. So we don't have to wait. Let's get to the super chats so we don't have to wait and they all pile up on us. And we'll start out with Lori Villalobos. She says, I think it's his dementia that's causing him to see people that are not there. And the people around him are not giving him facts. And you know what? And I agree. You got one more? Yeah. And I agree, Lori. I think that possibly with dementia, I do have some experience with this. They can lie. A lot of people who are suffering from dementia or early onset Alzheimer's can lie, and they don't even realize they're lying. And in their mind, they can't connect the dots between different types of lies because their mind can no longer function that way. We have another one from Alexa Gibson, another regular of ours. And Alexa says, I love having you on the show, Leonard. Thank you, Alexa. That is so nice. I love being here. I enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. And I really, I think Brian's in the live chat, as far as I could tell. And of course, I'd like to thank him for the opportunity to come here and spend some time and give everyone the news and kind of, get people's opinion on what's going on in the world. Getting on to the next clip. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth actually makes a football sport analogy to a deadly war where Americans and civilians are being killed. Let's listen to how stupid this is.
But I liken Iran's predicament to a football team who scripted the first 20 plays of a game. The team knew what plays to run because their first few drives were scripted. But now that the game has started and the blitz is on, they don't know what plays to call, let alone how to get in the huddle and call those plays. But I liken...
Okay, so you have the Secretary of War in charge of maybe the most powerful military in the history of the planet, and he's talking about a football game, and he's making analogies. And where I have a problem is people don't die in football games, okay? It's not about bombing and maybe hitting the wrong building. I don't know if he was referring to that or not, and killing children and killing civilians. And our men and women in the military are dying. There's 13 dead so far. I think it might be more than that. If you look on some of the social platforms, they're claiming that there's more than that have been killed, and that we're not getting that information. The Pentagon doesn't want certain news reporting agencies to be able to come in and report the news. So again, what are they hiding? Not a big fan of Pete Hegseth. He might end up being the Trump mushroom gobbler of the day. We'll have to see. And the next clip, this is just real quick. This is interesting because it did make the news, national news, and it's a big deal. CNN predicts that Democrat Emily Gregory will win a special state house election in Palm Beach district that includes President Donald Trump's Florida home of Mar-a-Lago. CNN's decision desk projects adding another special election to win a recent string of victories around the country for Democrats. And so congratulations to Ms. Gregory. And it just shows that if you know anything about Florida, this is a deeply red district, and it kind of hurts because it's right near Mar-a-Lago. And in my opinion, this is now showing that maybe there is a bit of a swing. People have been calling the show for months and saying, to Brian, what can we do? How can we get out of this? It looks like it's impossible, but little by little, some senators are now seeing the light. They're not supporting the war. Some congressmen, some people in the House of Representatives, and now you have Democrats winning in red states and red districts all over the United States. But I can tell you this: if the Democrats don't keep it up, if they don't keep the same energy, if they don't keep moving and knocking on doors and registering more Democrats, they're going to have trouble in the midterms. If the Trump administration even allows the midterms. Okay, next we're going to come up with Representative Dan Goldman, who I like, and it's really interesting because he's revealing an unredacted Epstein file on the House floor. And before we play the clip, let me just explain. I think last week or the week before, a caller called in and they were talking about there was no evidence in the Epstein case. And I believe Brian and myself, and I may have spoken over the person, I don't remember, because I was kind of passionate about it, saying that there is evidence. They have a 13 to 15-year-old girl, a Jane Doe, and she's on deposition, and she explains in detail what happened with Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And she reported it to the FBI. I believe they interviewed her 4 times, which we can get into why it takes 4 times to get the same answers in the same deposition. I don't believe charges were ever filed or pursued or an investigation. And then the young Jane Doe eventually gave up because of threats to her life and for fear of retaliation for her family. And obviously she's not rich. She's not a millionaire or a billionaire, so she can't fight them in court. And so I thought this was kind of a raw description, but I think it needs to be out there.
There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that, unquote. This is a lie. In the 3 million or so documents that the DOJ has disclosed to Congress under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, there is credible evidence that Donald Trump committed a crime. And that, of course, excludes the nearly 3 million pages that the DOJ is refusing to turn over. Donald Trump is mentioned thousands of times in the Epstein files. There are multiple allegations that he sexually assaulted young girls. But I want to focus on one victim's allegations that the FBI unquestionably found to be credible. The DOJ tried to hide reports of 3 of the 4 interviews that this victim gave to the FBI, but pressure from the media and Congress forced them to disclose them. And now we know why. She credibly accuses Donald Trump of sexually assaulting her when she was between 13 and 15. In each of her interviews, this victim recited the same account of her interaction with Donald Trump. On August 7th, 2019, she explained that she was between 13 and 15 when she was left alone with Donald Trump, who, quote, mentioned something to the effect of, "Let me teach you how little girls are supposed to be." Trump unzipped his pants and put her head down, quote, down to his penis, bit the S out of it. Trump struck the victim and said words to the effect of, "Get this little B the hell out of here." The victim advised that she bit Trump's penis because he disgusted her. She provided some additional details in the next interview 2 weeks later, and then a month later, she met again with the FBI and asked, quote, what the point would be of providing the information at this point in her life when there was a strong possibility nothing could be done about it. She didn't speak to the FBI again. But the FBI certainly found her story credible.
So I know that was for some of you, I hope it doesn't trigger you. And I know it was hard to listen to that. And for me, it was just disgusting to listen to. And so when people call in or when people go on the news and they say there's absolutely no evidence, that's not true. What you have right there is evidence. It can establish probable cause. If someone comes into the police department and they claim a sexual assault and they give details and they go on the record and they swear that they're going to tell the truth, there's some credibility to that. And at the very least, it needs to be investigated. You need to start an investigation. You need to go by the numbers. And everyone wants to know, of course, why that never happened. And someone in the chat also mentioned Katie Johnson. And I don't know, this might be Katie Johnson's deposition, but I think they referred to her as Jane Doe in the actual report. But I'm familiar with the Katie Johnson deposition as well. Moving on. So I'm a big fan of John Oliver. I think he's very funny, and he reports, he's very good at reporting the news and reporting what's going on. So I have a clip with John Oliver on Trump's war. where Hegseth insists we're winning decisively, but reality looks like an ongoing war, rising gas prices, toxic fallout, and an oil blockade at the Strait of Hormuz. Listen to the 3-time Trump voter, what she says at the very end at a gas. So there you go. A good example, a little bit funny, but a good example of a MAGA who voted for Trump 3 times, who thought, I'm sure what most MAGAs think, that there's some, that Donald Trump was going to do some terrible things, but not to us. That Donald Trump was going to cost everybody money, but not us. That Donald Trump was going to make life better for everyone, but it was going to be us. It wasn't going to be them other people that we hate so much. And so getting to one of the last clips here. Oh, super chat. You got a super chat up? Let's get to the super chat. I'm not afraid to break in with super chats. Oh, Alexa Gibson, Justin. That's why you wanted me to read the super chat. Thank you for the wonderful job you do every day. Thank you. And Brian is going to be so impressed that these super chats are just rolling in. That's good. I think I have one more. Immortal Suspects. Immortal Suspects, thank you for your contribution. The arrogance of this administration makes me sick to my stomach. PTL has been the best way to get through this. Thank you, guys. And you know, I have to tell you that I agree. And that's why I back Brian. That's probably why we're friends. We have more in common than just politics, but we seem to be cut very much from the same cloth. And when people are walking around listening to the news or watching what's going on in the world, and they're thinking, oh my God, that's crazy. Why did he bomb Iran? Oh my God, that's crazy. Did they have a cult of billionaires that were doing things with teenage girls? Oh my God, you know, are we really throwing people on the ground? Is law enforcement really going to wear masks and not identify themselves and not even tell you which agency, and then throw you in a van and you disappear, or throw you on the ground and shoot you because you're trying to help someone who in their opinion is being assaulted? And so when people watch this, and you know, and you can watch the news, and there's your MSNBCs and their CNNs and stuff, but they can only go so far. And that's why people like Brian Shapiro are important, because they will tell you how they feel. They will say, that's crazy. And you go, that's what I thought. And that's terrible. And there's no ethics, and there's no accountability, and it's terrible. And something needs to be done. You need people to say those types of things on the other side. Quickly, I wanted to mention, because this is fairly important. So the county attorney general in the county that includes Minneapolis, Minnesota, Mary Moriarty, filed a lawsuit against Department of Justice, and I think maybe the FBI. But what she's trying to do is she's trying to get some of the evidence. She wants to do an investigation. There was a homicide. The homicide is a killing of one human being by another, by definition. She's been given no evidence, no testimony, no interviews. They won't allow the ICE officers on scene to be interviewed. We don't know what they had to say about it. They won't allow the shooter to be interviewed on the Alex Preddy and Renee Good shootings. They won't allow them any of the evidence. They don't have access to the handguns. And she mentioned yesterday on the news that she believes that the Renee Good vehicle was shrink wrapped and put in a bay at the police department somewhere and hasn't been touched since. That is her understanding. So they asked her, you know, kind of what's the precedent for this? And she said there is none. She said, as far as she knows, and as far as I know, because I know history fairly well, her opinion was that no one has ever had to sue to get evidence from the federal government on a homicide. So I thought that was important to mention. And then the last thing I want to do before we have Ryan Shead coming in just about a minute or two is I want to put up a stat of Trump's approval ratings. So Trump has been saying that everything's going great and that he's in the 80 or 90 percentile, which is not true. So and if we don't have the graph, that's okay. But basically, you know, Trump's approval rating last night was at about the usual 35, 36%, which is his MAGA base. The disapproval rating was, I think, 64. And if you look at the Iran war, overall, Americans, is at about 29%. So if we look at this graph on immigration, he's underwater. 52% disapprove of how he's handling immigration. And we can have a whole talk about the border and what they're doing there and ICE. The economy, obviously 58% are not happy with the economy. I know I'm not. I'm not benefiting from anything that this man is doing. On the Iran war, disapprove 59%, cost of living 63%, because you can lie to us all you want, but the proof is when you go shopping and you get a flat tire and you have to buy tires, or whatever merchandise you're purchasing. And so I just wanted to, make sure that if we get any callers saying that what he's doing is popular, I want people to know that these are the actual facts. And then I think we're going to take a quick break. We don't need a break. We got Ryan lined up. Oh, great. We have Ryan lined up. I say let's keep it rolling.
I muted myself that time. What's going on, man? Thanks for bringing me on.
Hey, Ryan. Thank
Y'all
you.
thought you weren't going to see me today, didn't you? Surprise.
I explained to the audience earlier. I was listening to your show yesterday. By the way, you're doing a great job filling in for Brian.
Oh, thanks, man.
They have a lot of listeners that are loyal and want to hear what people like us have to say every day. And when you talk about the part of mental illness and you mentioned police and police response, I thought, like I told you yesterday, and for those of you who didn't hear the conversation, I thought it'd be a really good idea for Ryan and I just to chop it up a bit and maybe fill in some of the blanks for one another. So I'm gonna turn it over to you, and if you want to maybe frame it or tell us, your opinion, that would be great.
Yeah. So I mean, how we, the reason we're here today is because Leonard was watching and kind of heard a conversation between me and our district attorney here, Laura Conover, which you should go watch that from yesterday. And we talked about a scenario that happened where a false mental health check was called on me, and it was from a stalker. It was, like I said, the story wasn't meant to be, a negative connotation on the officers or the mental health people that showed up. It was more frustration with the process when I found out how everything went. And a long story short, they showed up to the house. It was Pima County Sheriff with a mental health professional. And, I went outside. I didn't take anything out with me, of course, but when I asked them, once they told me what they were there for, I was like, did you guys see the video in question? And they looked at me and said, no. And I said, can I go in the house and get my phone and show it to you? So they're like, yeah, of course. So I go in the house, get the phone, and I pointed it, to make sure that the sheriff's body camera could see it. And in it, I was talking about a time when I was struggling, but it was a 988 awareness video. So once I tell the part about my previous struggle, I go into, but I went and found help. I got medicated. We didn't have 988 back then, this kind of thing. So it was that kind of video. And as soon as they saw it, the sheriff just put his hand out and shook my hand. He's like, have a nice day. And I was like, that's it? He's like, yep, sorry to bother you. And that was it. Now, I know that not every encounter ends that way, and luckily it was false. I didn't need their services at that particular moment. But it definitely left me with this, we can do a little bit better. And I said the part yesterday, I said the sheriff wanted to help me really bad. The guy I was talking to, he's like, I want to help you figure out what happened. He's like, because this isn't cool. And he figured out that the call had been made, to flag me through an anonymous organization in Arizona. So it wasn't really, they could have probably tried to trace it, but at the end of the day, they didn't, they couldn't, whatever. And so, yeah, that brings up the really good conversation that we need to have about what can we do to make the process better, but also acknowledging that the services that are provided, we didn't have a mental health professional that would accompany a police officer or sheriff to your door. It's only been here for, 5-10 years. So and now we're finally seeing it ramp up more and more and more in cities, which is good. So of course I wanted to have the conversation from your side of the person knocking on the door to, what you all walk into that situation concerned with, and also what you hope to walk out of the situation with, if that makes sense.
I appreciate it. Let me start by saying thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you, brother.
And
yours too. All the years of police service, man. It's all service to the communities.
And only people who serve in that manner can really understand. And I'm not complaining, but you leave pieces of yourself, all over the world, all over the city, all over the county. And sometimes it's hard to adjust from that type of lifestyle. But I think the sheriff handled it spectacularly. We don't always have police that show up and say, hey man, they might
Are you
say,
okay? Yeah.
Yeah. No, you can't get the phone. No, I won't let you inside. And then
exactly.
And it's like, why can't you just let the guy go get his phone and show you so you can see it? And I as a sergeant and later as a lieutenant, I had to deal with, we call them A-dogs, they have A-type behavior, but the training we have is to make sure that you stay calm, because when you escalate, they escalate.
They have to escalate.
I've gone on calls of mental illness where people were threatening to kill themselves or someone else, and it turned out to be a big nothing burger, just a misunderstanding to people who were armed with guns and knives, and we had to use force. And so, I've been on those calls. I've done a million of them. We had a young man that was threatening the family with a knife and mentally ill, been out to the house. He was in his 20s, had just underwear on, no shirt. And I wasn't on duty, but this is something that happened that we used in our training. And he came out on the porch, and we have what we call less lethal options. So it's basically a 12 gauge shotgun with a beanbag. Yeah. And so we can try to knock someone down and hurt them without killing them. We also have
cause damage, but it's better than the alternative.
Yeah, I've deployed it, and I can tell you that it causes quite a bit of damage.
Yeah.
And so, but you're not supposed to shoot to the head or what they call red areas. There's green areas, muscle mass, yellow areas, which are
hard head, and yeah.
And then red would be like, the head area, and only for deadly force. So, and we also have a taser. Now, if it contacts properly, I don't care what kind of drugs you're on, you're going down, because it will completely incapacitate the entire body.
Yeah.
But if you have
I've always wondered that, like, you see the ones that are like, rah, and is it just they weren't connected right, or?
Yeah, if it catches a piece of clothing wrong, you don't have a connection. Okay. If you don't hit muscle masses, you don't get a great connection. And if the prongs, if you deploy it from too close and the prongs are really close to each other,
yeah, that makes sense.
Get a really good contact. The best contact is muscle mass to muscle mass, so shut the whole body down. But it doesn't always. So on this particular call, unfortunately, we were set up. I wasn't there, but the guys who responded were set up, and they were trying to talk to him. The mom came out. He was threatening the mom. He had a kitchen knife, and he ran down the stairs of off the porch and at one of the officers, and he happened to run at the one who was on handgun, and he didn't make it. And a lot of people were mad because I think
I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they release that one?
But they have to. They have.
I think I might remember that one.
You have to,
because that brings up a good question, because I know I've definitely been that person in the comments, like, y'all couldn't have subdued the guy, like you really had to shoot him. So like, I've definitely been that person saying that.
I can tell you that one of my first calls when I was fresh out of field training was a black female holding a kitchen knife to her chest, saying she wanted to kill herself and kill the family. We arrive, and like I said, we have options. We have maybe a less lethal, maybe a taser, maybe a pepper spray, but always a lethal cover. So what that means is you have a team, and you're not supposed to deploy any of those options unless you have lethal cover, unless someone has their handgun out.
Right.
And within seconds of arriving there, she came out of a back room and started walking toward us quickly with a knife to her chest. And I sprayed, hopefully trying to, stop her, sprayed pepper spray down the hallway. And she started coughing. And when she put her hand up to her mouth, she dropped the knife. We tackled her. Nobody really got hurt. We got a little bit of OC spray ingestion. We went outside and hosed our faces off. But that's a situation where it worked.
Yeah.
And often they will.
Positive outcome.
And
our policy is we have to respond, because it's a double-edged sword, right, Ryan?
Yeah.
Like if we don't respond, then it's like, well, you should have been there to save them. And if you do respond, they say, well, you could
You
have
didn't do it right.
And I think what you really want to talk about, what the problem is, and I'll be perfectly candid, is that some officers get a little bit too wound up.
Oh, for sure.
Is that not the real issue?
Oh, 100%. And we definitely, at least I always take that into account. And I think because I've been in a few situations where that fight or flight kicks in, your adrenaline's going, and you're like, sometimes you just react. And so I definitely get that. There's a human side to all of this. But it's like sometimes, and unfortunately, I think it's like a lot of things. We see all the bad stuff. We see all the bad shootings, the bad mental health responses, but we're not seeing all the good ones. We're not seeing all the stories that you just said of, yeah, we were able to stop that one, and here's how we did it. And like you said, you guys are training on how to do these things. So it's not like the steps aren't being taken. It really does, I think, at the end of the day, boil down to how the officer, or the person behind the body cam is capable of handling that spike in adrenaline, and all of that. Can they still keep their cool and de-escalate the situation, even when they're at that peak height of
de-escalate? That's what they're taught.
Yep. But like you said, sometimes that's why they train us in the military so over and over and over again, so that hopefully if you're in that situation, your brain's just going to kick in and do what you're supposed to do. And that's the same reason cops do it over and over and over again, so that when you get in that situation and that fight or flight and your adrenaline's going, you're going to still be able to manage the situation at hand. And unfortunately, some people either, they didn't get enough training, or they didn't respond well to the training, didn't have a good trainer. It could be a handful of things, right?
Well, and the supervisor is important.
Oh, 100%. I've learned it is in any job. I've been so fortunate it with supervisors over the years, and you're 100% right. You need a good boss.
And you need a boss who's going to stay calm. The sergeant is usually out in the field with the guys. The lieutenant, some time on the street, mostly administrative, in the office. And so, but when I was a lieutenant, I wasn't afraid to go out there and clear houses with them and go on calls. But what we tried to teach the sergeants is that if they stay calm, that usually keeps the guys calm. If the sergeant arrives and he's all wound up, then
everybody's going to respond to that.
I can tell you I had a call once where the guy was flipping out in the house, throwing things, and we got a call, and he was mentally ill, and we heard the yelling, and we peeked in through a window, and he literally had one hand on his girlfriend's neck and had her pinned off her feet in the corner, like on TV. And we went around, we kicked in the door, and then we took him down. I think we tased him, and it was okay, because a tase is nothing. It hurts when you do it, but 30 seconds later, you're fine.
Good.
Yeah, it's not like the movies where they use a stun gun or a taser, and the person and they go
knocked out for 2 hours in the back of the trunk. Yeah.
No, and I've been tased as part of the training, and let me tell you, you can't move. You can't fight through it. You can't.
My wife, she watches like Real Housewives and people getting tased. Those are her two things. I don't know. It's sadistic and weird, but it's her thing.
I'm glad we had the talk, and as you know, procedurally, when we go to the house, if the person does admit that they want to hurt someone else or themselves, then we have to do a 72-hour hold, where we sign a document, send them to the hospital. And you and I spoke a little bit yesterday. At one point in Nevada, even in Nevada, years ago, there was legislation to require a counselor to go out to the home. Now, some people believe there should only be the counselor because the police escalate. But the problem with that is, if a counselor goes out and the person is violent and armed
with weapons,
now they have another possible victim.
And definitely
let's ride with the officers and have one in the car with them. But the problem is, it would be an unfunded mandate. And then, of course, the police departments in the city and the state and the county were looking at it and say, well, we don't have millions of dollars to spend on this. So we
don't have the people either. Like, we really need to be honest that we don't have enough mental health providers to carry out what we really need. You know, we would need more mental health providers in, you know, each sheriff office, police station, you know, the VA. Like I said, it literally, I can prove it to you guys. It took me 6-7 months from the time I went and asked for help that I was struggling again to when I actually got to talk to a legit counselor. And, you know, 6 months after, you know, like if you're in an episode or whatever, or, you know, your meds aren't working right, like 6 months is a really long time. You know, like couple weeks I could handle, you know, preferably a couple days when you're in a manic episode, but that we don't have those resources. And our legislators are not serious enough about providing these resources. And it's not even just about police stations. We were talking about it in schools. Like, we don't have mental health professionals in most of the schools where they got active shooter drills. They got all these other things traumatizing them, but they got nobody there to help them process what's happening, their feelings and all that stuff. And then they go home to somebody who knows nothing about mental health or how to treat it. And kids just say, my parents told me I'm fine, and just deal with it. You know, and that's what happened to us in the 90s and the early 2000s. You're fine. Just deal with it.
Well, can I bring up the one big, beautiful, ugly bill? Because, and you probably know this, but the reconciliation law is projected to cause 16 to 17 million people to lose health insurance by 2034.
Yep.
Medicaid work requirements accounting for up to 7.8 million of that total. Coverage losses specifically for mental health and substance use disorder treatment are estimated to exceed 1.6 million people. Do you think any of those people who voted for that bill care about the mentally ill people?
Nope. None of them do. You know, and again, like I said yesterday on the show when we were talking on the phone, the issue is, I call it my community. My community, you know, those of us who struggle with some kind of mental illness or depression or anxiety or whatever we're dealing with, our mental health. Our community is growing. And the reality is, the reason we're growing is because our country is in turmoil. Our cost of living is out of touch. Our gas prices are so bad, people are having to decide if they fill up their gas tank or they go have lunch for the day. You know, it costs $7 for a large fry at McDonald's right now. Like, everybody is stressed out, full of anxiety of where they're going to get their next meal from, if they can feed their kids, if they can put gas in their car, if they can go buy groceries for the week, all of it. Every single person, if you are not independently wealthy or making, you know, $500,000 plus a year, we're all struggling. And guess what? I hate to break it to most of you. That's like 98% of us. We are all in the same boat. Like, we're on Noah's Ark of freaking recession here. Like, it's you and us. And the mental health, we got to fix our living situation, our school situations. That's how we fix mental health. But most importantly, the last thing I want to say is, and please bring up more, I'm not saying I have to leave, but we cannot continue to expect our schools, our police, and everybody to keep doing their job and everybody to keep being happy if we don't get serious about our government and how they're treating the American people right now. Because soon it's going to be 95+% of the people going, I need mental health professionals. Not that there are any, because I can't provide for my family. And you know how hard that is for men, and that we really aren't conditioned to talk about it. We aren't conditioned to go online and be like, you know what, I'm struggling to feed my kids. That's a tough conversation to have as a man, because that's ego driven. I, as a man, am supposed to provide for my family, and I'm struggling because they don't pay me enough. They expect me to work 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts, and then they complain because my kids aren't well behaved because I'm never home to take care of them.
Yeah, and you know, let me just say that it breaks my heart that men and women like yourself risk their lives, dedicate themselves for 4 years, 16 years, 20 years, whatever they decide to do in the military.
Yeah.
And then you come back to this.
It's crazy.
Not everyone, but you come back to this semi ungrateful, kind of society where legislators and people who control the ability to help you with your mental health and provide the doctor visits and the medication or whatever it takes.
Yep.
And like I said, you know, because you stand up for America and you fight for our values, you may lose a piece of yourself. I know I did.
Yeah.
And so it's just a shame that on the other side, they don't see the humanity of it. They don't see the compassion of it. They don't see the empathy of it. They only see dollars and power. And right now with Donald Trump as our president, you know, he completely discarded 6,000 people were laid off because of the big, beautiful bill that work in the Veterans Administration.
Yep.
Ancillary people, direct people, nurses, doctors, all laid off. Thousands of them, thousands of people who take care of vets. Is that fair? Is that something that should happen in America, or is that un-American? Because it sounds un-American to me.
Well, it's pretty un-American, and it's even worse when you're saying, "Oh, we take care of our vets. You know, we love our vets." Well, if you did, you would make sure the VA at a minimum could handle us and get us in. Like if you've got PTSD and you walk into the mental health place and they tell you 6 months, that's not acceptable.
Yeah, and you know, and the thing is, by the time you get around to getting your spot and waiting around for all the paperwork to be done, it could, you know, the mental illness could increase exponentially in the
100%.
meantime.
100%.
No meds, no doctor visits, no counselors, no psychologists to talk to. And so I would like to tell you, you know, I know we just met and we just became friends, but I have many, many, many military friends who've been through unspeakable horrors, and you can call me anytime. You have my cell number. You can call me anytime, 24/7, and I'd be glad to chop it up with you. I've done it for many people.
I appreciate that. I really do, because I don't have a ton of people to call, surprisingly. But I want to leave with this, though, because I don't want to make it all negative. The reason I fight the way that I do, and I try to bring awareness to the medical issues that I deal with, is because I have good health coverage. My wife did 22 years. I did 4 years. So because of her, I get really good coverage compared to most Americans. And I feel like everybody should have my coverage that I have, my government coverage, at a minimum. You know, and I'm not saying it's perfect. Like, I have to go to my family practice doctor to get my mental health meds because I can't get into the VA fast enough. So I'm not saying there aren't problems, but here's what I'll leave you with. I had my first documented mental health or manic episode when I was 24 years old. I was on active duty, and they called it adjustment syndrome at the time. Now, of course, now we know what it is, but I wasn't diagnosed correctly until 2018. I was 38 years old. So I was lived from 24 to
leave the military.
I left the military the day my dad died, January 3rd, 2007.
Sorry to hear that.
And thank you. And that was its own, you know, set of issues too. But the point is that it took me a really long time. Getting on medication is not a, you know, oh, here you go, this is going to work. It's you know, sometimes they call it practicing medicine for a reason, because it's always evolving. Medications are always evolving. Things get better. I had bad meds and had to get off of them. So the journey is rough, but the VA doctors, and the two VA doctors in particular in Virginia, you guys know who you are. If it had not been for them sticking with me for 2 years, and then my psychologist was about 5'2", 120 pounds maybe, and I'm 6'4", 250. And I couldn't sit in her office because I was having an episode, and she told me to come in because I was struggling that bad. So I come in, she sees me, didn't have an appointment. I can't sit in the room because it's so small. So we go out to the ocean because the VA hospital in Virginia is on the ocean. And we sat there, and I just bawled, lost it. And she sat there with me for like 40 minutes and finally she's like, this isn't depression. This isn't anxiety. This is something else. So they sat down, they asked me 16 questions, and I answered yes to every single one of them except for one. And the one I said no to was, do you feel superior or better than other people? Every other question I said yes to. And when we got done, I said, what were those questions for? And they said, those are screening questions we would ask somebody for bipolar disorder. And that's the day they said, we think you're bipolar. And they said, the only real way we're going to know is if we take you off the meds you're on, put you on these, and see how you go. And sure as heck, man, it was about a week or two, and the meds started slowly kicking in, and I started slowly, getting better. And it was like, holy crap. And the only way I can explain it to people is it's a cloud. It's a cloud that lifts, and you're like, oh, this is what I used to feel like that. I remember that day where I was like, oh, this is what normal is. And that's what it felt like to me.
Let me just say, Ryan, that I'll speak for myself and a lot of people in the PTL nation, respect what you did.
I love y'all.
Our heart breaks for you, but you should be proud. You should walk around proud. You should hold your head up and know that what you did matters to people like us. And it requires sacrifice, and it requires brave men and courageous men and women to go into the military and fight for freedom and fight for what we all believe in. But on a more positive note, why don't you leave us with
yes,
what you got going on? And
yes, please head over to my YouTube channel. You can find it under Ryan Shead, Shead. And but most importantly, I just wanted to thank you for bringing me back on, having these conversations, because as important as it is for us to reveal our struggles, it's even more important for somebody to put a microphone in front of our face and let us tell the story. So appreciate you for giving me some of your time. Uh-oh. I don't know if he froze. Did he freeze or did I freeze? Oh no. I don't know what happened.
Okay, we're back. PTL Nation, thank you so much for being patient. We had a slight technical difficulty, which happens, and we're back. So next segment, we're going to be taking calls. So give us a call at 702-221-7283. We'll be taking your calls. We want people who are pro-war, who are against the war, who want to talk about the Epstein files, the price of gas, the southern border, immigration. If you want to talk about ICE, these are some of the things that are prevalent. The shooting of Alex Preddy, the shooting of Renee Good. These are some of the things we have been talking about today. The Minnesota County AG sued the federal government to try and get some of the evidence from the Renee Good and the Alex Preddy shooting. We've talked about mental illness. We had Ryan Shead on. Sorry I didn't get a chance to say have a good day to you, my friend Ryan. We were cut off, but we did talk about everything that we wanted to talk about. And I think Ryan did a terrific job. And to come on a show live, especially with video feed, and to be candid about your experiences and your PTSD and your military experiences shows a lot of courage, and it means a lot to a lot of people out there. So we want to thank Brian. So call in 702-221-7283. That's 702-221-7283. We'll also be reading your comments in the super chat, and I will find out from Numchuck in just a minute. I don't think we're holding any super chats right now, but we will take them as we go. Don't be afraid to call in. While we're waiting for Numchuck to get ready, I did want to mention one bit of news before we get to the phone calls. Breaking news, Meta and YouTube lost the lawsuit about, so they were sued for not providing enough protections for children and for children to get addicted to their platforms. So they lost the lawsuit, and they have to pay $3 million to one victim. And then there's about 350 additional victims that they're probably going to have to pay. And it's a drop in the bucket, money wise for those large corporations. But they say that schools could also possibly jump on board and sue them as well. And so are we ready to go to the phone lines?
Go to Dave.
Okay. We're going to go to Dave. Dave. Okay, Dave, you're Trump administration, you would have to wonder why. If it is true, if truly people are in the Epstein files and some of the depositions are true about what they did to children, then you start to wonder why. Why would a Trumper endorse Trump? Why would you support someone who's immoral? And if you're a Christian, can you idolize someone who's immoral? If you're a true Christian, that's where it starts to break down for me. But as far as people, I think we have a lot in common.
Oh, of course we do. But like I'm saying, I just want to make it quick, and I'll end it with this. We are sending ground troops over there. Okay, probably about maybe 20,000 or 1,000 or whatnot and so forth. Okay, correct my numbers. But I'm going to tell you right now. I hate to say it, and something, people, because I've been around since '64, so I've studied all these wars, and I've seen it from Kuwait with Clinton during the Kuwait, when we went to war in Kuwait, in that sense, and they blew up those oil refineries and so forth. And we had to go over there and send people over there to fix them and all that kind of crap. I'm just going to make it simple. These people in Iran, and no different in Iraq, they fight dirty. And something, I've said this a lot, and that's Brian. Brian totally agreed with me. He says, no, you're right. That you seen how it was. Remember in October 5th, when they came down in Italy and like this, and they took some of the people? I saw one video where they shot one guy, they shot him in the back, and then they slit his neck.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me interrupt you real quick, Dave, because we gotta kind of get through a lot fast. But Russia does the same thing. North Korea is even worse.
They do.
Hungary is just as bad. So why is it okay to go bomb Iran? And by the way, they said they wanted regime change, and you know what they did? They traded bad for bad. They traded worse for worse. Do you understand what I'm saying? They didn't there was no goals. They didn't accomplish anything that they said they were going there to accomplish. And so, I understand he was a bad guy, but we're not here to go and start wars, especially wars that have no significance for people in America except for to hurt us and put us in harm's way. And by the way, the war's not going away anytime soon. They sent 3,000 paratroopers there. They're on their way today, and 1,000 Rangers, and maybe more. But thank you for the call, Dave.
82. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for calling in. And we're going to move on. That was a good phone call. Excuse me. So next we have Stefan. Hi, Stefan. This is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hey, yo, what up, bro?
What you got, Stefan?
I got a. You can hear me?
I can hear you just fine. What you got?
Might go.
All right. I have a valid argument about the gas prices and how the Iran war is actually not effective to those at all.
Who is this? Is this Clarence? Who is this?
No.
This is not Stefan, is it?
Yeah, it is.
This is Stefan. So are you under the driving age and you don't have to go pay for gas? Is that why you're saying it doesn't affect you because you don't drive yet?
I never said it doesn't affect me, and I do drive actually.
Okay, well, there's some people out there who think who would rather. What is he cursing? Well, here, if you're going to call and be foolish, I mean, I guess that's funny to him and his friends, but you're just wasting a lot of people's time. And we're here for some serious discussion to really chop it up. And if you think you're that smart and you're that cool, then call in and tell us what you think. We don't have a problem with that. So let me read it. I got a super chat real quick. This is from Minnesota Vet. During the course of this show, 2 vets will take their own lives. Before the Trump administration, we were making progress, but cuts to the VA have reversed those gains. And you know what, Minnesota Vet, I agree with you 100%. The thousands of people that were cut under the one big beautiful bill is actually heartbreaking. It really is. It's gut-wrenching because these people are coming in. Military people need help, whether they're active or whether they're just coming back. And so I agree with you 100%. Next caller. Okay, let's go to Bill. Hi, Bill. This is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hi, Leonard, Lieutenant. Does it concern you regarding the 18-year-old girl that was murdered?
Oh, did we lose Bill? I think we lost Bill. Okay, let's Okay, let's move on. John. Hello, John. This is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hey, Leonard. Hey, thanks for taking my call and thank you for your service.
You're welcome,
the thing that really has me worried about having ICE agents in an airport is when they're dealing with stressed people who are trying to catch flights. And let's face it, a lot of these ICE agents are mentally unhinged. I mean, as a cop, I think you would not want them in your unit or on your police force, and having them armed is a recipe for disaster. Especially if they encounter people who they don't like, or people that pushes them too far, like what happened to Alex Pretty and Renee Good.
I can tell you, John, that any police, they would not survive in any police department in this country. There's a thing called, let me explain, hydraulic needle effect. That's when you shoot water or liquid with such power that it acts like a needle. And so we are taught that you cannot spray people from 2 to 3 inches away, 5 or 6 inches away. You have to be a minimum of 5 to 10 feet away. And that's with an OC spray, a pepper spray that comes out like a cloud, not like a needle. And so what I'm saying is the types of tactics and the brutality they've shown would not last in a regular police department. But that's what we're trying to do, right? Isn't that the legislation right now? We're trying to get the Coast Guard paid. We're trying to get TSA paid. We're trying to get CISA paid, which is a spy organization. And we want to get them to get paid, but we're not giving up. The Democrats are not giving up any money until they make reforms to ICE. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Yes, I think it's time that they stood up, and it seems like they're going down the right road. Thank you for the call, John. It's a good call, and we appreciate it. Who's next? Okay, let's go to Brandon. Brandon, this is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hey, Leonard, how are you?
Oh, good. Going over a lot of subjects today. So,
I know. It's like
trying to cover a lot of important materials.
Right. First of all, to all the listeners in the chat, just to be clear, and I promise that I am not the guy Ray that called last week. There's a few people in the chat saying that my name was I was that guy Ray that called. But anyway, you were talking about Trump's approval rating. I think it's actually a lot lower than what's being reported. I mean, the other day I saw like a video of Nick Fuentes saying he's going to vote for Gavin Newsom in 2028. I mean, there's no way that his approval rating's even that high. It's got to be in the low 20s. It has to be. I mean, I don't know how, with the price of gas now heading towards $5 a gallon shortly, the prices at the store, the war, and all the other stuff is going on with, besides all we talked about. There's no way his approval rating is that high. There is no way.
Well, they're saying in some areas like the war, it's as low as 29%, and they're always going to hover. The MAGAs are always going to hover around that 30, 31, 32%. That 1/3 of the country, for some reason, is never going to leave him no matter what he does. But I played a video earlier of a woman in a gas station who voted for him 3 times, who cursed him out. So I would have to assume he's losing MAGAs, and they probably don't want. It was a Reuters. One of them was a Reuters poll. And if you know anything about Reuters, they're accurate and they're credible, but they kind of stay toward the middle. They don't like to report the high numbers, as far as been in my experience.
Right, exactly. And I was one of those former 3-time Trump voters. I'm one of them. I'll tell you. I know so many people in my family that are triple Trumpers. They want him gone. They are so sick of him. And also people that I work with, it's just ridiculous. His support is like so low. It's like an all-time low. People just want him gone.
Well, you were conned, were you not, Brandon? You were told America first, right? Isn't that what you were told?
Absolutely.
You were told no more wars, no more forever wars. Yeah. The economy will be great. Tariffs are great. You were sold that tariffs are going to teach China a lesson, which all it did was cost Americans hundreds of millions of dollars. Am I right?
Absolutely. It's all one big scam.
Yeah, well, we appreciate the call, and I'm glad that we're able to find some common ground. That seems to be a theme that's getting more popular. And have a good day, Brandon. I appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to my friend Jason.
Hello.
Hey, Jason, it's Leonard. What's on your mind?
Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready. Hit me with it.
Okay, so this is my little synopsis so we can get it straight. Number one, Ryan, if you're still listening, the reason why Nelson is getting called names because every time he calls in, he doesn't stay on topic. He just comes on with his own agenda, and that's why Brian gets frustrated with him. That's number one. Number two, there's nothing that I in common with MAGA. I'm talking about the true MAGA cult, because the true MAGA cult enjoys cruelty. Because you can't tell me somebody that enjoys kids not getting school lunch, people not having health care, and most of all, having a president that is standing at watching coffins come in, and yet he got his hat on, and then not only that, uses the depiction of the coffins coming in to fundraise. So we have nothing in common, because the one thing I care about is the poor, and most of all I care about is soldiers giving their life for this country and giving them the respect that is due. So there is no way I have anything in common with somebody that has cruelty and no respect for patriotism, true patriotism.
It's truly un-American and truly discompassionate. But let me ask you this, Jason, we all have to live in the same country. We all have to have neighbors. Where I live, a good majority of my neighbors put up Trump signs, and so we have to coexist, and we can't have this constant hatred. You can be understanding, but at the same time, call them what they are. You need to call them, if they're racist, you need to call them racist. If they're against poor people, you need to say they're against poor people. But at the same time, we have to coexist in America, do we not?
Okay, but see, you're forgetting the big point. We are, the cultists are actually supporting a draft-dodging pedo. How could I even have anything in common with somebody that is okay with the president being a pedo? Come on, bro. Come on.
Well, let me ask you this. What kind of people are okay with that? What kind of people are okay with not letting you have an abortion, even though you're raped by, let's say, a family member? What kind of people think it's okay that they abused teenage girls and they're getting away with it? You have to ask yourself, what kind of people?
Exactly. And so how do I have anything, and how can I get along with somebody that is okay with a 13-year-old getting raped by her father and then forced to have that baby? How can I have anything in common with that person?
No, I don't think anyone's, I'm not asking you. I don't think anyone's asking you to have anything in common with them. What I'm saying is we do have things in common. And it would seem to me, if you don't mind me saying, you seem to be a pretty good orator. You seem pretty good at making your points. You have a lot of energy. People like to listen to you. People on the show enjoy what you say. But shouldn't you be using that gift to try to maybe shed light on some people? Brian has stayed on people, and eventually they saw that they were wrong. They saw that they were MAGAs. They knew they got conned, and that it was some of it was very bad, if not evil. But don't you think you should use your gifts even on those people to try and maybe help them see the light?
Listen, my brother, I'm going to come with you with the bottom of my heart on this point.
Okay.
I had a friend that I grew up with since the 3rd grade. I known him since the 3rd grade. And then the turnout, and we hung out. We used to cook together and all that. When Trump got in office, this guy turned from my best friend to a Trumper. That hurt me so deep.
I'm there with you, brother. Same story.
And I tried to reach him. Listen, as you say, I'm such this great orator. I try to give him as much love and everything back to him. You know what I got back? Get out of my face. So if I couldn't reach the dude I grew up with, how do I reach somebody that has been a Trumper from the doors? You understand?
How about somebody you worked at the police department for 25 years? You know them for 25 years. You trust them. You're good friends. You work together. They worked for me at times. And that person seems like a complete, utter, twisted zombie. Like what comes out of some people's mouth, I can't even believe, from the MAGA movement. I can't even believe, like if Trump said the earth is flat, they would be like, I don't believe it's round, and that's a Democratic hoax, and Trump said it's flat. And that's what my friends, some of my ex-friends, sound like when I talk to them.
Yeah, well, you know what? Now that you spoke to me and you really helped bring me down, I'll try my best to bring a Trumper. I'll do what I can. I'll always, because you know one thing, I am a compassionate person. And if I can talk to them and make sense, and they can make sense of it, yeah. But if they stay on that side of Trump's MAGA, then I'm gonna have to. There's nothing we're never gonna get along.
Stay strong, Jason. And I think everybody in the room loves you, and they love your commenting, and I really appreciate it. You have a good day.
Have a blessed day yourself, sir. God bless you. And
Thanks again, Jason. Okay, who we going to next? I'm waiting for my orders. Okay, we're going to Julie. Julie, hi, this is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hi, Leonard. I just wanted to say, I think it's really important that when somebody comes around and says that, now that they realize that, even though they voted for Trump for 3 times, that we welcome them, to be on the side, to be friendly, I think that's really important. The other thing I wanted to say is the children under this regime, and it's a regime that they're all responsible. They're all culpable. They're all, letting it happen. And it's, yes, the pedophilia, but also, the bombing of a school in Iran. I don't care.
160 kids, right? Girls.
I don't care who, what country it is. These are innocent children, and then the detention centers, and how they're being treated there, and then being deported. And, yesterday there was a 17-year-old boy, talking about being now the leader of his family because his family got deported, and he's basically, raising his siblings.
I saw that testimony. It was heartbreaking. It was really hard to watch, and he's trying to be so brave. I know exactly the kid that you're talking about. And but do the Republicans in Congress, the MAGAs, do they really love children? I mean, they're like, hey, we have to stop you from getting an abortion because we're pro-life. But by the way, once we do that, we don't want to help you feed them. We don't want to help you take care of them. We don't want them to have mental health. We don't even want them to have a lunch at school. We don't even want them to be able to go to school and have a lunch. Are these people that really care about children? They got rid of the WIC program. They got rid of food stamps. Do they really care about children at all?
No, they don't. They don't. And I'm going to tell you, I was a single mother. I raised my son by myself primarily. I had, some family help out, but I needed that WIC program at that time when, my son was very young. I needed that, with a block of cheese, for crying out loud, that giant block of cheese, but I needed it, and I got it, and I was fortunate, to get it and to get help, but they don't care.
I've had to have government cheese, and not to interrupt you, but I actually like government cheese. I think it's pretty good. I thought it was good. Comes in a big 5-pound block, and you have to cut slices. I thought it was terrific.
Yeah, but there's a story behind that. But anyways, it's just so sad that, they want to control women, and that's really what it's about. It's about, people wanting to control women. And, really, I feel like, you talked about apartheid earlier. Was that you that talked about that?
I didn't really call it apartheid. I called it racism.
I mean, but there is a certain amount of, slave class that's happening. I'm sorry to say, but, that's what's happening is they're trying to knock out the middle class. And so, they're completely in control. And so that's what I fear for our future if we don't get really bold about, getting to the polls and fighting what's happening, of course, peacefully. But we need people to show up to know King. We really need it.
You know what we need to get back to, Julie, and what the Democrats are now getting back to that they got away from. We always won elections because we had masses of people registering Democrats, and we went and knocked on doors. And we used to have a saying, in politics, don't run if you're not going to walk. And what that means is don't run for something unless you're going to walk the neighborhoods and knock on the doors and have a staff that knocks on doors, answers questions, finds out concerns. And I believe the Democrats got away from that a little bit, and they're going to work their way back.
You see some people doing it. Some people, the young progressives are still out there doing that. I think Mondami was, doing that and asking a lot of questions, and AOC does that. She was asking a lot of questions. So I think there's some people that are going to be rising stars that we see, but, we need a firecracker like Jasmine Crockett. But, I think Tallarico has a chance of changing Texas to blue. I think that's our best shot. I think it
maybe, there's a possibility.
Crockett was my pick.
Me too.
You have to think. I mean, I live in Texas, so you have to vote strategically. And it's, I'm in a kind of a rural area. And so, I mean, I'm not from here originally. So, but I see it from the outside, and I can see like there's still a good amount of racism.
Oh yeah. I mean, more than ever, and they're not even hiding it anymore. But thank you for the call, Julie. That was a great call.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I have so many people holding on. I want to try to get as many as I can. Do you want to do a super chat first? All right, I think we have a super chat waiting. Super chat. There it is. So Lori again. Villalobos, one of our regulars, one of our favorites. When a man asks for help, they're meant for their mental health, shows their emotions, etc., is more of a man than a MAGA man thinks of a man. Thanks, guys. And I would agree. Like Ryan Shead, obviously she's talking partially about him, and Ryan, not afraid to be candid about his struggles and being in the military and how it was to come back and how it affected him. And it takes a very courageous, very brave person to talk about their frailties or lack thereof. And we're very proud of Ryan and what he was able to accomplish. Okay, moving on. We are going to, was it Charlene? Okay, Charlene. Hi, this is Leonard. What's on your mind?
We are going to, hi, this is Charlene. Just calling because I was listening to you earlier talking about the Epstein files, and I think you said you thought that those 4 FBI reports were Katie Johnson.
So there, I think it was labeled Jane Doe. I'm not sure if the ones that the congressmen were talking about, I think they were the Jane Doe, but I believe that Katie Johnson also gave a deposition, and it was bad. I mean, it's something
she
that
did, and I was just calling to say that they're actually 2 separate girls.
Right. Yes,
and they were quite a few years apart from what I've been hearing. I follow this great person, Ellie Leonard, who's on Substack, and I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's also communicates back and forth with Les Parnas. So if you ever want like really in-depth information on these Epstein files, she's like digging into it like crazy. And
but
so,
you know what, Charlene, one of the reasons I played the segment, it was striking to me, the amount of detail that the FBI was told.
Yeah.
It was striking to me.
The situations are like really similar about how he treated each girl.
And you have to remember,
Survivor.
I was a police officer, and I grew up in a tough neighborhood in Newark, New Jersey. And, Ryan, who was a guest earlier, is tough as nails, tough as they come, but the average person, especially a 13 or 14-year-old girl, when you tell her when they're threatened or their family's threatened, they're not going to say, oh yeah, come and do what you have to do. They're going to get scared. They're going to think that it's really going to happen. And as you know, when you look at litigation and you're fighting millionaires and billionaires, unless you have that same amount of money, it's going to be extremely difficult.
Right.
And so that dissuaded her and the family, and I understand that. But now it's coming out in the Epstein files, and I don't think they're going to be able to get away from it. But thank you for the call, Charlene. It was a good call, and I appreciate your input. Moving on. Okay, let's go to Brian. Brian, hello, it's Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hi, Leonard. I just had a question really quick. Are you aware of what happened over at SFO, California, the San Francisco airport, where 2 ICE agents kidnapped, I'm calling it kidnapped a woman and separated her from her child at an airport?
When was that?
I think it happened, I think 2 days ago. I'm not entirely sure. It was when Trump decided to send all these ICE agents to these airports. I'm not sure if you were aware of the one in California.
I heard a little bit about it, and I think that's a byproduct of Trump sending ICE agents to airports. I think the real goal is to see if they can cause the American public to become used to seeing ICE agents. And so when they send them to the polls in the midterms, they're going to say, well, they're just there for security, or they're just hanging out there. But if you look at the Constitution and you look at state laws, it's actually illegal for them to be there, because there's no reason for them to be there, especially when they're armed. And so I think
somebody said it happened yesterday.
Oh, did it happen yesterday?
Yeah, it happened yesterday. So my question is, now I saw some of the footage. These guys were not they were not dressed in like your typical tactical gear. They were just wearing, I believe it was a hoodie, and
yeah,
they didn't have weapons on them either. And they just started, manhandling this woman. And so my question to you is, if citizens see that happening, can they lawfully pull those men away from the woman to help her in any way, shape, or form? And if they don't show any badge at all, I don't think they didn't show badges either, by the way.
Well, let's do it, Brian. Let's do a Alex Preddy analogy. Did he step in because he didn't want that woman to get arrested by ICE? Did he step in because he was trying to fight the police or protect her? He grabbed her by the hand. He said, "Are you okay?" So the question is, can people who are, I wouldn't really call ICE law enforcement, they're like a lower level law enforcement. They're not trained very well. But if even if law enforcement is assaulting someone, illegally assaulting someone, can a citizen intervene? So the question is, yes, if you can prove that it was actually an assault and that it wasn't, and in order to do that, you have to have an investigation. So if they won't investigate or give up any information on Renee Good or Alex Preddy, how are we supposed to find out if it was a legitimate intervention by Alex Preddy, who was concerned for that woman? How are you supposed to find out if they won't tell us anything, if they're covering it up? So I agree with what you're saying. And if they're not, my thing is, if they're not identified and they don't identify themselves and they're just guys in jeans and hoodies grabbing a woman and trying to take her away, if someone wants to get involved and it goes badly, then I think both sides have some explaining to do, right? The person who intervenes has to explain why they did, and the officers have to explain why they didn't identify themselves. And this is the huge fight in Congress right now. As you know, this is the big fight. The Democrats will not allow DHS to get funded, or the Coast Guard, or CISA. They will not allow them to get funded until ICE agents agree that they will follow the normal rules, just normal rules of police conduct, what every other police officer in America has to follow every single day. And they have to obey the 4th Amendment and the 5th Amendment and the 14th Amendment and the 1st Amendment. And they have to abide by the rules of the state and of the federal government. Is that what you were kind of alluding to?
Yeah, I was kind of alluding to that. And I was just wondering too, because I see all I just don't know what right and wrong is anymore, because we literally have a 34-count convicted felon sitting in the office, the Oval Office right now. He's ripping up parts of the Constitution. He's basically gaslighting the American people at this point. And I mean, did you see the comment he posted the other day about Robert Mueller?
Yeah, he's glad he's dead.
That was
terrible.
He's dead. So by that
terrible.
By that same logic, can we say that, I know it's not. I know you guys probably talked about this already. Remember Charlie Kirk being assassinated?
Yes.
Yeah. So you know how they were all getting up in arms.
I didn't like Charlie Kirk, and I don't regret that. And if I said negative stuff because he was racist and he was anti-women, then oh well, they could be mad at me. And with regard to Robert Mueller, you could argue that George Bush after 9/11, if it wasn't for Robert Mueller, George Bush would have got through it anyway. But Robert Mueller was the bigger part of the direction of the country and how the FBI was handled and how that whole situation was tactically and eventually investigated. Was he not?
Yeah, I just find it very hilarious that, he's attacking people, Trump is attacking people that once upon a time worked under his administration. That's just
appointed by
wild.
him. Right, exactly.
That's
Let me ask you
wild.
this. If you're a convicted felon, should you be able to run for president in America? It's not against the Constitution right now, but should that be an executive order when the new president comes in, that if you're a convicted felon, you can't run for president?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then some people would say, well, that's unfair. And I would say, well, if you're under 35, you can't run for president. So does that mean an 18-year-old can now run for president? You see what I'm saying? Does that mean that you can run for president even if you're a convicted rapist? I mean, I don't know. Where does it stop? But thank you for the call, Brian. We appreciate it. Good call. We have to move on to a few more. Who's up next? Hello, Carol. This is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hi, Leonard. I just wondered, do you think Trump's got any idea in that how he's going to pull out of the Iran war?
I think that Trump stepped in it, and I have kind of a little list. For example, Trump said he was starting a war with Iran to prevent nuclear bombs. Did that happen? No.
No.
He said he was starting a war with Iran to destroy enriched uranium. Did that happen?
No.
No. He said he was starting a war with Iran with a goal of regime change. Did that happen?
No.
No. He traded bad for bad. He said he was starting a
and
war
I
with
just-
Iran to destroy their leadership and have the people, just regular civilians, take over. Did that happen?
No.
So how were civilians, after they bombed the regime, how were civilians supposed to take over with no weapons? He also said he was starting a war with Iran so he can encourage the Kurds who live in the mountains, to about 2,000 or 3,000 of them, to come down and take over the regime, and they would arm them. Did that happen?
No.
No, the Kurds backed out.
Well, the thing is, too, in that, when I heard about this, I thought, Trump is seriously opening up a big can of worms that he's not going to be able to get out.
I don't see the off ramp yet, because the Iranians control the Strait of Hormuz. Then he said that they obliterated their missiles and their bombs, and they just bombed the crap out of Israel yesterday. Just yesterday, they bombed them. So obviously, we didn't get all their missiles, we didn't get all their drones, because they're still bombing sites, and so that didn't. So did that happen? No, that did not. Let me ask you something else. Did you ever think an F-35 stealth fighter would be shot down by Iran?
No.
Right, because they're impossible to shoot down, right? But you know what happened? One got shot down. And then on Saturday or so, Trump gave Iran 48 hours to open the Strait of Hormuz, or else. Did anything ever happen?
No.
And that was how many days ago? 4 days, 5 days ago? You see what I'm saying?
That's what I say in that. I think he seriously opened up a can of worms, and what scares me the most is Iran's retaliation and come in and start bombing the United States.
Well, how's he looking for an off ramp, Carol, if he's sending 3,000 Rangers to the area? He's sending another 1,000, paratroopers, I think. I don't know the exact numbers, but he's sending thousands and thousands of military personnel to that spot. So does that sound like it's ending anytime soon?
No.
No.
And that's what scares me the most. And I'm totally fed up with his lies, lie after lie after lie after lie, and then he throws other people under the bus and makes it sound like none of it's his fault, and it's sickening in that to listen to his lies.
And what about his promise when he was running for office? I won't be the one to start forever wars. I'm the one. Joe Biden did that, and Barack Obama did that. And by the way, we had a very nice treaty with Iran under Barack Obama. Did you know that during the years when we had the treaty, where they were allowing inspectors to come into Iran, and they were allowing the international inspectors to come in and check their uranium. Do you know that it was only at 3.5%, 3.5% enriched? You know what it is today? It's at 60, and they're headed for 90. And that's because, you know what? Because Trump hates Barack Obama so much, he canceled that treaty and said Obama was giving away billions of dollars, which is not true. What Obama did was he took off the sanctions and gave Iran their money. He gave them the money that was already theirs. He didn't give them American dollars. He gave them Iran their money. And in return, they allowed, it was like once a week at one time where inspectors were allowed to come in and check every facility. There was no hiding the ball, and Trump did away with that. So whose fault is it that they have 60% enriched uranium?
It's Trump's.
Right. And so now, if you look at some of the 15-point plan, you know what it says? That they won't enrich the uranium beyond a certain point anymore, and that they will allow inspectors. Does that not sound like Barack Obama's treaty back I don't know, 10 years ago or so? Isn't that exactly what he did?
It's just, I mean, he lied from the day one when he came into office. He's not helping. He's a heartless human being. He's not helping anybody.
He's proud of having no compassion. He's proud of showing no empathy and having sociopathic people around him. He's proud of that. But thank you for the call, Carol. I really appreciate it. Good call. Let's get to the next caller. Across the pond to Paul from UK. Hello, Paul. It's Leonard. Before you speak, though, I have a question. So are you from England, Wales, Scotland, or Northern Ireland?
England.
Right in the biscuit, right in the center. Okay, I was just curious because I know the UK is a wide variety of countries.
Oh yeah. Well, remember, it's very densely populated, the UK. It's not like America.
Right. So what's on your mind, Paul? What you got going?
Well, I just want to very briefly just explain about the Katie Johnson video. I'm very familiar with this video, and it's on YouTube, but whether it doesn't come up on US searches, I don't know, because it's always been readily available. And when I was on Twitter, I've posted it to MAGAs, and also to a couple of MAGAs I know personally, and it is explicit, and it's very.
It is. It's very raw,
and it's graphic. And yes. Trump is right in the middle of it with Epstein. And if you listen to that, and one MAGA who's in my family, I sent it to, said she might not be telling the truth, which infuriated me. He said it just infuriated me. He said, well, why isn't he in jail? I said, because somebody called her and threatened her. That's why. Somebody threatened her.
That's what she said.
Yeah, she was threatened. She didn't want to, you cannot blame some kid being threatened by somebody much more powerful. You can't blame her, but it's graphic. And the fact that Trump has not answered to these things, he's not.
I got to be honest, Paul, I never thought I'd see it in America. If you would have asked me 10 years ago if the president of the United States could be in this situation, doing the things that he did and doing the things that he's currently doing, a lot of the stuff I would have said, no, not in this country. No way. There's no way that this country would have a president like that.
Not in a million years, Leonard. And more than that, having the structure of America condone it and allow it. I would never have believed it. 9/11 was horrific and incredible and improbable, but that was more believable in advance than this.
Oh yeah, and the UK was behind us 100%. They were behind us.
Of course we were.
In fact, and don't take this wrong, but UK was helpful in spreading the lie, about mass weapons. They were on board.
Of course, absolutely. Tony Blair is not well liked.
100%.
He's not well liked, believe me. We were not happy with our involvement in that lie, but we were happy to support America after 9/11 because we were equally disgusted and horrified by that. And we're now horrified to see America condoning a man who is as dishonorable and disgusting as Osama bin Laden in that Oval Office.
Maybe worse in some ways, but
in some ways more worse. Yeah.
But I have a lot of callers. Always a good call with you, Paul.
Okay,
we really appreciate it. But before we go to the next caller, I have to clean something up real quick. So I mentioned, that the WIC program was canceled, which it was. Okay, so that's not a lie. That's not a misstep, but it was reinstated about, I don't know, probably about a month ago. And so under pressure from a lot of people, it was refunded. And I think that it's working okay right now. My point was talking about certain types of people, these conservative Republicans, these MAGAs that won't stand up to Trump, even though it's 100% wrong to stop providing help to infants and babies who need diaper and formula, and say, well, you know what, you're a single mom. You should have been like my family. I have a big family with lots of money. You should have came from my family, which makes no sense at all. So I just wanted to, correct that, because technically it is working. And I was talking about the time when it was taken away. Are we ready for another call? Okay. Hey, Jeff, this is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing? Yeah, Trump, he has another 15-point plan with Iran, kind of similar to the 15-point plan he had with Gaza. This is colonialism, the
imperialism,
the Monroe doctrine of colonialism, which I don't think they're going to be acceptable or even last. And another thing, Hegseth Petey the dragon, that Petey guy. Petey the magical dragon, he wants another $200 billion, and what my feedback here is that we're spending $1 million, $5 million, $20 million drones to attack like $10,000 Iranian drones.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is the defense systems. So the missiles that are deployed in the Golden Dome and in defense systems are between 1 and 4 million, and then some of them can be up to 12 million per launch, depending on whether it's going after a long range missile or other kinds of capabilities. And they're saying, they originally said the Iranians were making the drones for about 20,000, but it's probably closer to 35,000. But you're taking out hundreds and hundreds of drones at a time, thousands over 2 weeks, and you're using multi-million-dollar equipment to take out a $35,000 piece of equipment. And what people are saying is it can't be sustained. You can't sustain financially that kind of a war, because you're going to get bled out. And by the way, it didn't make a lot of news, but there was a tanker blown up in the Red Sea just a few days ago. The U.S. said it had supplies. Well, it ended up being supplies, all right. You know what it was? It was hundreds and thousands of missiles and bombs that got bombed and is now on the bottom of the Red Sea. So why didn't that make the news? Why wasn't that spread around to everybody? I want to say they estimated the cost. Don't get me wrong, but I think it was close to $53 billion just for that one tanker. Are we going to be able to sustain that? I don't think so.
Yeah. There used to be a phrase called follow the money, but now we all know that the money is going to Trump. Every word he says is stock market manipulation.
Yeah, which, kind of is insider trading, sort of, and maybe semi-illegal. But, they were saying on MSNBC, they had an economist on and said basically what he's doing is he tells his buddies, one thing, and they buy a bunch of stock. And then he comes back next day, and he says, it looks like the war is going to end. So now selling starts to go up. Well, all of his buddies already bought the stock, and now they're selling it top dollar, maybe manipulating the market. That's not what I'm saying, but that is what was reported on the news. But we appreciate the call, and good call. Lots of good information. I'm trying to get a couple more in if I can. We have Will. Hi, Will. This is Leonard. What's on your mind? Will, are you there?
Hello?
Will? Is this Will?
Yes.
Hey, this is Leonard. What's on your mind?
Oh, thanks for getting me, Leonard. Basically, I heard a few callers ago you were talking to a woman who I believe is more focusing on like Iran. and such. And then you guys started going on to the lying. And I guess I'm curious, what's your opinion? Where do you think the next election goes post-Trump? Because I've never seen anyone have more of an adversarial relationship with the truth besides my own president.
Well, let me ask you this: are you talking about the midterms, or are you talking about the next presidential election?
Kind of both, but I guess theoretically more the next election, just because purely, I mean, not the next presidential election.
Well, here's the bottom line, and I'll speak for myself and my friends who agree with me. We're going to need people to run, and when they run, they're going to need to tell us their policy, and they're going to need to tell us their policy and how they're going to correct the amount of damage that has been done. What do I mean? If you're talking about midterms, are you going to agree that if we take the House and the Senate, that there are impeachable offenses, and are you going to proceed with that? Are you going to make sure that the executive orders have to be sent through the legislature and agreed to become law? And when it comes to president, are you going to undo everything that President Trump did? I don't mean everything. I mean mostly everything.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to undo? Are you going to bring back Roe versus Wade? That's a big thing. Are you going to stop tariffs? Are you going to stop these wars? Are you going to bring our people home to where they're safe? I think that those are the key issues in the next election.
Okay, and that makes sense. But I would say this: when we do get to the midterms, and let's say it goes well and the Democrats seize power, right? So I guess in your mind, the goal is that we're going to make him a lame duck president, and the goal is we're going to have like more or less tribunals for a lot of to rectify a lot of the wrongs that we've endured for the last couple of years.
Well, it would be easy to say that what has been done amounts to crimes, misdemeanors, and criminal offenses. And so, but I don't see him getting impeached, if that's what you're asking, because he may be successfully impeached in the House. But remember, when it goes to the Senate, they have to convict, and they have to have 60 votes. So even if we take control of the Senate, I don't really see us getting the 60 votes at any time until we get a new president, if that makes sense.
I'm with that. And I guess I have another question, which I think is more like where I'm way far more concerned, just because, I mean, I'm certainly a little bit more online. Obviously, when I talk to people in real life, it's a little different. But I am becoming quite pessimistic on the idea that somehow we're going to convince, a quarter of the country, or whatever the number is, of the MAGA voters to potentially at least maybe believe that he's a liar.
I think they just live in a different reality. I think that they thought that all the bad stuff Trump did was going to happen to someone else. So, and I don't know if they'll ever turn on him, but we have to get to the next caller, I'm being told.
Okay.
Oh.
No worries. Thank you. I appreciate it, Leonard. Have a good rest of your day.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the call. Oh, we're running out of time. Wow, that went by quick. I'm being told we're running close on time. Okay. So before we go, I want to thank the viewers. I would like, very positive comments, very supportive. We talked about a lot of stuff today. I will be back tomorrow. For those of you who are waiting for Brian Shapiro, he will be back on Monday. And then Friday, you're going to get Ryan Shead, who came on the show for a quick interview earlier today and did an awesome job. And I want people to know that my heart goes out to the military veterans, and my heart goes out to the military personnel that are now being sent to, parts of the Middle East and Iran to protect Israel and protect, the U.S. troops. I just hope there's not a lot of them that don't agree with the war and don't really want to be there, because I can't imagine how hard it would be to put your life on the line when you're ordered to go somewhere and you don't really believe in what you're doing, and it wasn't really explained to you. And by the way, if you watch the news, Trump and his administration and Pete Hegseth, they haven't really explained to anyone anyway. So I'm gonna say have a great day, everyone. We appreciate you listening, and I will be back tomorrow. Cut.